How's it going, guys? It is Glake from the Avid Entries, and today I'm finally back with a another part for Shadows Before Dawn, another part of the reading. I want to apologize for there not being any videos. I haven't uploaded any new parts last week for the reading, and like I said in the last upload I did, I knew last week was going to be a very busy week. I thought I would be able to get in at least a few chapters, but unfortunately, I didn't get in any at all. And to make matters worse, the back end of the week, got sick, caught a cold, which I'm still sick right now. I want to say yesterday was probably the worst of it. Today, I'm feeling a little bit better, actually a lot better, but I am still dealing with some issues. So I'm a little stuffy and throat's a little itchy, nose is still runny. So hopefully I can hopefully I can make it through this without too much issue. But I think I should be okay. So yeah, we are on chapter 4. Left off on chapter 4. So yeah, chapter 4 is where we are today. So this is what this is Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. So I am hoping this weekend is going to be another busy weekend for me. Friday and Saturday, I know I'm going to be pretty busy. Tomorrow, I work tomorrow. So it's going to be kind of tough to get in. I think it's probably going to be kind of tough to get in 3 chapters this week. But I'm really going to try and get up 3. Hopefully, I'm feeling a lot better by tomorrow, Friday especially. So I can kind of just power through or find time to power through 2 more chapters before the end of the week. I really don't like uploading in rapid succession like that. Like, I'd kind of like to give it 2 to 3 days before I do the next chapter, but I kind of want to make up for the pace that I lost last week, and getting 3 chapters up this week would be nice. Anyway, since I'm actually using my DSLR camera. You guys could already tell I'm in a different environment today. So what's going to happen once I hit 30 minutes is that the camera's going to cut off, because that's just what it does at 30 minutes. So unless I finish the chapter before 30 minutes, there will probably be some sort of cut, and I'm looking at the timer, so I'll know when I'm getting pretty close. So there will probably be some sort of cut while I'm reading, and then I'll continue, and hopefully we can squeeze the review in to the second cut. Yeah, without further ado, let's start with chapter 4. And chapter 4 is entitled Finding My Own Purpose. First section, I guess. The Great Shortcut. Earlier in my journey, when I started observing people who love themselves, I must admit that jealousy would often get the better of me. I would find myself sitting in front of them, with a giant scowl on my face. When you hate yourself and hate your life, and you come across bright-eyed, bushy-tailed individuals who are happy to be alive and happy to be themselves, the first thing you want to do is kill them. It may sound a bit harsh, but you know what I mean. I resented the way that they would just make their decisions on a whim according to what made them feel the best, as if it was as easy as that. But it occurred to me, maybe it is just as easy as that. Maybe the rest of us were going about it the hard way. It occurred to me that at that point, I had been taking the long road to feeling good. Instead, these people who love themselves took the shortcut. I was chasing happiness, but they were choosing happiness. I had no idea what would make me happy, and I also didn't know what my purpose was. But now I know the truth. It's impossible to make a wrong choice on the path to happiness and on the path to finding your purpose, because it's not just one thing. Becoming happy and finding your purpose are about every decision you make and everything you choose to do. To explain what I mean by this, I'll use a few examples from my own life. When I was younger, I decided to be a professional model. At first glance, it was a decision that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. I was a deep thinker and a tomboy. I was extremely introverted and spent most of my free time writing. As time went on, I could see that it made even less sense that I was in that business. I hated it. It was cruel, shallow, nasty business. Trying to fit Trying to fit myself into the world of modeling was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. But I know now that there are no mistakes. So this step, as ill-fitting as it was still valuable to me in many ways. But it surely wasn't my life's calling. New section. Choosing between college and a root canal. So in 2006, while still seeking my path, I decided to go to college and had settled on a major in philosophy. Having come from a highly educated family, I was convinced that if I got a degree, I would gain more credibility and respect. But there's just one problem. I hated classroom learning. I would sit in the dark auditoriums and listen to the lectures, feeling as if I'd rather be undergoing a root canal. It was that awful. I'd stare at the faces of the other philosophy students, wondering if the people who care about philosophy are like me, depressed, passively suicidal, and trying desperately to find some kind of meaning in life. It dawned on me after my first month that no good was ever going to come out of a degree in philosophy. Once we graduated, no one was ever going to pay us to sit in a room and think. When I asked myself, why do I want credibility and respect anyway? The answer I received was that it would feel good to have credibility and respect. Suddenly, I made no sense to myself. Here I was, sitting in college, miserable and hating every minute of it, because what, I wanted to feel good? In other words, I'm feeling bad now because I think that feeling bad now is going to make me eventually feel good. It was mixed up. Granted, because I was a philosophy student, I usually knew how to make these mental riddles make sense. But no matter how you spin it, this one didn't make sense. Instead of being brave enough to go straight forward for what felt good, I was trying to feel good in a roundabout way. So I asked myself, what would someone who loves themselves do? I knew the answer immediately. I'd do what made me feel good right here and now. What made me feel good? Winter sports. I love the feeling of freedom that arose from gliding over the frictionless surface on the ice to the clapping sound of my long track speed skates. A year earlier, after making the U.S. Telemark ski team, but finding no sponsors to support my ski racing career, I had officially traded my skis for speed skates. I thought I would become a competitive long track speed skater. I figured being any kind of winter sports athlete is better than not being one at all. But I wasn't the best speed skater in the world. I didn't start speed skating at age 3. I didn't start speed skating after a lifetime of inline racing like most of the other professional speed skaters that did. Like most of the other professional speed skaters. Sorry. I had potential, and that was all, but I still loved every minute of it. New section, seeking another shortcut to happiness. When I had asked myself what would someone who loves themselves do, the answer was quit school and dedicate yourself to speed skating full time and don't ever look back. So I did. I took the shortcut to happiness and began to live my life according to the question, what would someone who loves themselves do? That was when I started to really enjoy my life. I was following my passion and it was great. But not long after, I found myself at a decision point again. I was putting myself into premature menopause with my grueling training schedule, and the physical damage done to my reproductive organs during childhood meant that my window for having children was very slim already. I had a sit-down talk with how is this pronounced? Gynecologists, right? Yeah. With 2 gynecologists who both concur that if I continued training at that pace, I might never have children. I was faced with a serious decision. Is it more important to have a child or chase my Olympic dream? In my teens, I had lost 4 babies in total, 1 set of twins, and 2 other pregnancies to forcible abortions performed by my abuser himself. I felt a deep need within me to know what it would be like to actually hold my own baby instead of lose it. I felt like some part of me would not be complete if I never experienced it going right at least once. At the time, I was also newly married, and so together my husband and I decided that it was more important to both of us to have a child. Still, it was difficult to conceive. I had to work with an infertility specialist, but we managed to have a healthy baby boy. When my son was born, I was faced with another decision. Do I want to live a quiet, private life and remain a stay at home mom? Or do I want to come out about my past and help other people improve their own lives by offering what I know and what I've learned to the world? You already know the answer I gave to that question, but here's the best part about all of this. I can't help but laugh when I think about how it all came together. When I was modeling, I learned how to present myself in an extroverted way. I became comfortable with the camera and with crowds. Now, most of my life is spent in front of a camera and in front of crowds. When I was doing professional sports, I realized that I couldn't excel at them unless I faced my inner demons and began to heal them. I was rehabilitated, I think that's how you pronounce it, and empowered by sports. I had to live a healthy life in order to succeed. As a result, I got better and better. I got healthy, I learned how to deal with pressure, I became brave enough to step into the public eye. It was the perfect preparation for the career I have today. Having my son caused me to embrace my extrasensory gifts, which are the platform of my profession. And best of all, those years ago in philosophy class, I dropped out after realizing that no one was ever going to pay those of us who graduated with philosophy degrees to sit in a room and think. But now I have taken the direct route to happiness and live according to what someone who loves himself or herself would do. People actually pay me to think. New section, leading others to self-love. I slowly started to take on clients, or rather, clients started finding their way to me. It surprised me that the things I knew about this universe and the people in it, things I took for granted, were unknown to the vast majority of people. It surprised me even more that the things I knew had the capacity to gently help people. After a year of seeing clients, I realized to my surprise that I actually loved this life of healing, oriented work. My greatest love had sprung from what I always considered to be my greatest hate. I remember one particular Monday morning when I was sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor preparing for my first client of the day. One of the mixed blessings about coming into this life, the way that I am, is that it takes more effort to be physically present in my body with all of my consciousness. I astral plane instantaneously and sometimes unintentionally. I had no control. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be I astral project. Anyway, and sometimes unintentionally. I had no control of it at first and would sometimes become unconscious and collapse. But I have since developed the skill of remaining present and embodied by choice. To astral plane is to consciously or subconsciously shift consciousness from the perception of physical to the perception of non-physical, which is not limited by distance and time. My open and conscious connection to my higher self was not lost during childhood, and I have the connection or ability to communicate with my higher self at all times, even when I choose to ignore it. Because of this, I did not lose memory of what was before I came into this life, nor what will be upon death. So I came into this life endowed with the objective universal truths. And one of those benefits of this gift is that I can access the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are the totality of information about all that ever was and is, which is encoded in the non-physical plane of existence, also referred to as the mind of God. It is a collection of unlimited information that can be accessed from a state of source-like consciousness, such as when one is in meditation or astral planing or under hypnosis. This means that depending on my state, I have accurate awareness of past lives. It is a form of retrocognition. When I meet people, quite often flashes of images of their lives and childhoods and even past lives flood into my awareness. which can serve as either a tool or hindrance when I am trying to focus on them here on this earth, standing before me. To overcome this, I have to consciously ground myself before meeting with people one on one, especially when all of my conscious focus is required in the here and now. So on this particular Monday morning, I was just completing my process of becoming grounded when the doorbell rang at 11 o'clock on the dot. On the other side of the door stood Linda, a 43-year-old woman who, despite her age, was the size of a middle school student. Her rusty pickup truck was parked outside of the house, and it was still smoking. Her hair was falling out, and underneath her skinny frame that looked as thin as a willow sprig, there was a resident sadness protected by a haphazard masculine demeanor. New section, exploring the roots of blame and self-loathing. Let's see. Okay, so plenty of time left. Just want to make sure timer doesn't go off while I'm reading, or while I'm while I'm staring down at the book. All right. As she stepped through the door, I was inundated by images of her as a child lying in a crib and crying with no one to pick her up. I saw an image of her sitting on the wooden stairs in her house, feeling as if she didn't belong. Her mother chastising her for not picking up her toys. I saw the emotional deprivation of her childhood, and I also saw images of her father coming to her bed at night when she was a young teenager I saw images of her father coming to her bed at night when she was a young teenager to proposition her for sex. Wow. As usual, having trained myself to do it, I took the information and, without reacting to it, put it to the side of my mind so I could observe her various energy symptoms and her body and allow her to open up to me. We sat in my therapy room, and Linda started off by informing me that she didn't know why she was here. She didn't believe in all this spiritual woo-woo stuff, but she had been diagnosed with MS, and it was affecting her job so much that she felt desperate enough to give it a try. I began asking her what she was having trouble with exactly, and she explained that she was a construction worker. So she had to stand on the side of the road every day. She would experience dizzy spells, and then her legs would begin to tingle and go numb. If she didn't sit down, she would collapse and be unable to walk for the remainder of the day, unassisted by a cane. At this point, Linda asked me if I was going to do energy healing because she heard I could do that. I told her maybe eventually, but I don't like to treat the symptoms of an illness. I'd rather treat the cause. She looked uncomfortable. I asked her if she was really willing to dive deep inside of herself to figure out what the problem was. She nodded her head in the same way. That someone does before they are about to bungee jump. I asked her to pretend that she lived in a world where physical conditions were caused by difficult emotional and mental problems that people were facing. I then asked her, what difficult mental or emotional thing are you facing or have you faced around the time you started feeling the symptoms of your MS occur? I wanted to see how conscious she was of the effect that her past had on her emotional condition. She replied, well, I have been feeling like I'm dying. It's like my body isn't absorbing any food anymore. I get skinnier and skinnier, and I don't know why. I gently asked her, do you want to live? She looked at me with this shocked expression and stayed silent for a few minutes, trying to suppress her emotion until she finally started weeping. No, she wailed. I kneeled beside her chair, holding her while the emotion escaped her in great heaving sobs. When she started back up again, she told me that she was so lonely, but that she just couldn't get close to anyone, and that she had even thought she was a lesbian for a time because she was so afraid of men. I asked her, do you know why you feel that way about men, Linda? Well, my dad used to sleep with me when my mom was pregnant. I told her, that's enough to do it, right there. Linda started crying again and explained that that was the only time that either of her parents ever gave her approval, and that she felt so guilty because she actually wanted to feel that way. Her father would sleep with her and then tell her that because she was so pretty, he just couldn't sleep in his own bed. He told her that she was his favorite, and so this was their little secret. After I explained to her that her reaction of wanting his affection, despite being scared, was a perfectly normal reaction to sexual trauma, I asked her how she felt about herself. "I'm okay," she replied. "Do you want to know what I think?" I asked. "I think you hate yourself and wish you were never born." Again, Linda started sobbing. "Yes, you're right," she admitted. As is common with so many abuse survivors, the blame is internalized, and self-loathing becomes second nature. New segment, How Disease Takes Over. We are at, let's see, okay, so I'm going to have to cut. Alright, so oddly enough, I thought I could make it, but it turns out the camera cuts at 20 minutes. Interesting. I always thought it was 30. Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. Anyway, so yeah, we're on to the next section, How Disease Takes Over. I didn't start reading it yet. I believe it cut off after I said that, so. Alright. On the next hour, I informed Linda of every perception I had about her and proceeded to tell her that she was correct. That she was correct about the feeling that she was dying. I explained that when someone doesn't really want to live because his or her life is so hard, the body begins to give out. It's a form of passive suicide. On top of MS, her body was slowly starving itself to death. I actually did a video about that a couple years back, because I do remember hearing her talk about it before. It was like an online interview or something, and it caught my attention so much I decided to make a video on it. I forget what it's called, but it's on the channel somewhere. Anyway, I went on to explain that MS is a disease that belongs to people who try to be all things to all people because they're convinced that is the only way to be loved. The stress and the pressure is too much, and since they won't ask for help, their bodies eventually give out, forcing them to cut back and get help from others. I told her it was a message to let other people take responsibility for their lives and for her to focus on her and only her. Linda's problem was self-love. She had none. And because she had none, she couldn't accept love from other people either. On an energetic level, living without love is like the body trying to live without water. Together we designed a manageable program with day-to-day practices around the core of self-love. Maybe because she was ready, or maybe because she was desperate, Linda saw me every other week for 6 months. She applied every process I have outlined in this book. She learned to base every decision on self-love, and just 1 year later, she was like a different person. Her entire life had changed. Is somebody at the door, or is that I think that's just the dog. New section, The Powerful Impact of Self-Love. The week after our first visit, Linda called to inform me that she had gone through her wardrobe and realized that the only colors she wore were black and brown. She told me that she sat down on her bedroom floor with a printed picture of a color palette. She asked herself, what would someone who loves themselves do? While looking at the color palette, and immediately felt drawn to the swatch of pastel pink. She confessed to me that she always thought she hated pink, but actually she associated it with girly girls, and she knew that girly girls were vulnerable. She didn't want to be vulnerable, so she rejected pink, because she didn't ever want to feel vulnerable again. So she also rejected men, and she rejected any aspect of her own femininity. Why can I never pronounce that properly? Femininity. She rejected her own personality, and she even chose what she considered to be a masculine job. 2 weeks after our first visit, Linda confessed to me that she had discovered that she had always hated her job. Standing in the hot sun and pavement fumes, being yelled at by drivers, so she quit. She determined that her true passion was plants. 3 weeks after our first visit, she came to my house and started crying the minute I opened the door. She said, "This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I've had to change everything. I mean everything. I'm starting to realize that I don't even know who I am." It's a normal reaction to have. At first, it feels good to finally honor yourself after years of self-neglect, But then, honoring yourself means thrusting yourself into a world of uncertainty and discarding the nearly everything you thought you wanted, trading it in for a brand new life. Is that my phone? That is my phone. Alright, give me 1 second. See, I always figured that this would be the main issue with not recording in my room, is that all of these noises are going to happen. First my phone, then the home phone. Crazy. Anyway, okay, where did I leave off at here? Okay, here we go. So, starting over isn't easy. It can be downright torture. But as Linda found out, the pain of rewriting your life in the name of self-love will never compare to living the half-life of being disconnected from your true self. Over the course of the first year we worked together, Linda moved to California to be near the ocean. She took out a loan to buy a little plot of land, which she lived on in a walled tent. She started growing medicinal herbs, and eventually opened up an online store which she sold her natural body products. 2 years later, a chain of health food stores started carrying her products, and because she could afford it, she bought a little farm. Her hair started growing back, and after she settled on a diet that felt right for her, she began to gain some weight. She started dating men who used to come to her farm to buy fresh herbs from his small local restaurant. They were married, and despite Linda's doubts about being able to conceive, they recently had their first baby. And to the astonishment of her doctors, she has not had a single MS symptom for over a year. Linda's case is just one example of what can happen when you start to love yourself enough to care how you feel, and care how you feel enough to make the right choices for your life. Linda did not turn her life around because someone else did something to heal her. She didn't find a miracle cure. She turned her life around because she was brave enough to begin to allow herself to have what she had always thought she had to be given by others. She was brave enough to risk everything in the name of learning to love herself. End of chapter 4. So, how much time? Okay, so pretty good on time. Very interesting chapter. So this is kind of just giving you, honestly, this chapter, above all of the other previous 3 chapters that we've read, this one sort of, I feel like this one sort of does a really good job at sort of prefacing the book the most, which makes me think that we're probably going to end up jumping into lessons pretty soon, eventually I want to say, but this chapter is very heavily focused on self-love and how taking those steps can really turn around your life. So, it started first with the author and sort of detailing about how she sort of dug herself up out of her struggles. This is taking place a little bit after, her abuse case is kind of behind her. That point in her life is kind of behind her, and she's sort of starting her own life now, and how her going about what feels best to her, how that ended up turning her life around, and then her finally, I guess you can say, helping her first client turn their life around using the same method, and just this overall concept of self-love, which is crazy because you hear people all the time say, you gotta love yourself and all this other sort of stuff. And, even when I, after learning about, this sort of concept of self-love and like what it really means to actually do that, when I hear people say that, especially people that I know, it becomes quite clear to me that even though we say that all the time, and even though we know that we should be loving ourselves, in a lot of ways we just don't do it. I feel like maybe there are a few things that we do that are self-loving, but for the most part, I think just the way that society sort of is now, it almost seems as if loving yourself is just very, very, very impossible. That's sort of my personal thoughts. But anyway, that's the end of chapter 4. So the next chapter is called Synchronicity. So this one should be pretty interesting. Synchronicity. This should be pretty interesting. So like I said, I'm going to try and get at least what. I'm going to try and get at least one more chapter out before the end of the week, but I really would like to get in 3 chapters this week, just to catch up, sort of, from last week, since I wasn't able to get anything done from last week. So, like I said before, this reading is easily going to carry into September. We probably won't finish up until around the end of September if I continue with my current pace. I think end of September we'll probably be able to finish up. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this this chapter, let me know your thoughts. Let me know you liked it down in the comments below. Make sure you hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, oh crap, I lost my, there it is. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, feel free to do so now. Make sure you hit that bell so you know when the next, right away when the next chapter is uploaded. And yeah, you guys take care, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.